time as we have. And then Yanni here, she'll let us know what the mom talking about.
Now, what was your next idea?
Next one was called Impaired Vision. And I'm not sure about the name or whatever, but the concept is a book about how early life dysfunction hinders some people's ability to clearly and consistently cast a vision for dreams and aspirations they may have in the future. I feel that one very personally, and I never understood it until over the last couple of years. But then I go back and I think about examples of where that makes sense. The most glaring example for me is when I used to high jump in college. And so the idea, or what I would do and what most people do is, you're getting ready to do your event, right? You warm up, got your warm ups on, you out there with your group of high whoever people you're gonna be competing against. Everybody's warming up, got your earphones on, getting ready or whatever. But one of the key points of preparation, one of the main things that you would do is you're sort of sitting there on the apron and you're looking at the mat and the bar and everything, and you're visualizing success. Like before you get ready to jump at some point, you're picturing in your mind getting your approach, getting your marks, running up to the bar, taking off, soaring, clearing the bar, standing up in the mat after you clear the bar with your hands raised, like, yeah, like I did it, right? You're visualizing success so you can go execute success. Well, the interesting thing about me is I was having success, but every time I have those moments before actually going to do the jump, when I'm visualizing the jump in my mind, I never cleared the bar. So I run up, I jump, but no matter how hard I tried, I never could visualize myself being successful. Even though I did one just a moment ago and I was successful. But if I had to visualize myself being successful, I couldn't do it. And I never realized that while I was going through jumping. But a couple of years ago, I started understanding like, why am I not completing things to task? Why am I having a hard time visualizing success in certain areas? Can I successfully write a book? Can I successfully, do this thing that I've never done before? Like, how do I get started and see it all the way through to completion? And I realized I was having issues called casting vision for myself, which is one of the key traits a man should have is the ability to cast vision for himself and his family and like literally just work towards it to move forward. But, you need a vision, a complete vision to be able to try to lay it out and go execute it. And so I think that's where some of my lack of success for getting into new things or going to execute, I don't think that's why I have an entrepreneurial mindset on a business or certain things because I can't see that vision all the way through to the end. And so going all the way back to when I saw myself high jumping off, I saw myself playing wide receiver, and I run my route and the ball is coming, and at the end, like I don't catch it. Like I'm catching most of them, but I'm not catching it in my vision. And so the idea of this book was like, man, I have some sort of impairment to my vision that came from the dysfunction of my life where people told you you're not going to be successful or it was a harsh environment or whether it was something that was abusive or whatever the case may be. um, for whatever reason it broke your ability to cast successful vision for yourself, because of just your personal dysfunction, things you've gone through. So idea for that, impaired vision. One other one was, then again, these are just random ideas. And the title, I don't know if it fits, but one, it was just Through It All, is the title. From dysfunction and chaos to normalcy and inspiration. A journey through a life of abuse, abandonment, anger, and finding a new hope in Christ Jesus. Right. So it's kind of just like a walk, right? Like all the things that you have been through that are negative or harsh or whatever, excuses for a lack of success, excuses for failure. Many people in prison, you know, dead or whatever, and their excuse was, well, I went through this or this happened to me, and sometimes it could be a reasonable excuse, or it could be accepted by some people as a reasonable excuse because of the things you've gone through, but through it all, you can experience things, but you can also turn those tests into testimonies. You can turn those negatives into positive. You can, have be the sort of the whole rising phoenix, or the rose out of the concrete, or all these other, things that you see when someone is going through struggle, going through hardships and those type of things, and make the most out of it. So that whole through it all is just like all of us have dysfunction, like identifying what's your dysfunction and how do you work through it, how do you heal from it, and how do you work through it to become, a better person and get better outcomes in your life. This next one is one that I talk about a lot, and I've learned so much in this, and it's one of the topics that I actually like to discuss, and it's called parenting with grace. And it's basically, as parents, how do we teach, how do we discipline and evolve in raising our kids from newborn to young adult? What do we expect from our children? And how does our parenting techniques and our quote unquote parental bag change as they grow and or as we learn more? So my daughter and I talk a lot about this one where, man, growing up, because of how I was raised and because of the things I've gone through, I was so afraid to be a parent, and I just knew I didn't have the certain skill set or things that I needed to raise children. And it was evident. I started out rough with my first children. I didn't have a lot of tools in the toolkit, dealing with dysfunction and generational curses, with anger, with all different type of stuff, right? And it's like, man, how do I get this right? So back then, I'm, raise your voice, spank, whatever you need to get done to get your point across, even if they weren't misplaced things. Like, it was very important for me to have sibling togetherness and love in our house and those type of things. Even though I didn't really know how to express love a certain way, I knew when I saw my dad and all of his brothers fighting, I did not want that for my kids, and it wasn't tolerated. And there were certain things that I wanted, and even though they were the right things, I wasn't executing in the right way because I didn't have a deep enough parental bag. I didn't have enough tools in my toolkit to be successful. And dad, he didn't have a toolkit. He had one tool, right? Dad told you something, he'll whoop your ass, right? And excuse the language or wherever this ends up, but like, we understood he had one well sharpened, highly successful tool, and he got instantaneous results. So he really didn't have a need to go get a bag created, because he knew, however, whatever he went through in his life, and he knew at the point he was in his life and whatever he was going through, he was physical, right? And so you had to go figure it out. Now we need to offer and be able to give more to our kids. And it's not on our kids, it's not based on them, it's based on us. We have to expand our parental bag. We have to expand our toolkit. We need to be able to reach down into the bag and come out with much more than corporal punishment, right? So as I've grown over the years, I have prayer in there, right? I have punishment, or taking away taking away of special things, or you have conversation. You have, I mean, there's just a lot of things that you should be able to feel in that bag that allow you to parent in a much broader way, to parent more with grace, to go for teachable moments over discipline, right? To do things that are so sustaining and so building and life giving for your children, that you're able to get the results that you want, but also not leave stains and impediments for your children to have to go deal with in adulthood, like we had to deal with because of the abuse or because of whatever the case may be, right? So um, that was one of those, parenting with grace. I've learned so much grace in my parenting, and it's still not perfect. It still, has its flaws by a long shot. But I realized, just in general and through the Word of God, that as a man, God has given me the capacity to offer grace to my family. He's given me the ability to expand and to contract according to what my family needs. So I should be a place where My wife's dysfunction can find comfort around me. My children's needs, whether it's mental or physical, or ADHD, or sadness or whatever, they should be able to have a comfortable place and a safe place around me as the father. So, how do I expand myself, and how do I offer enough grace that I'm the comfort spot, for my family to be around. And it's an ongoing thing, and it's not perfected, but it's just the knowledge base of knowing, um, it's not about me just being the king and making everyone else do what I tell them to do, or you have to go figure it out because I'm the ultimate authority. Even as the ultimate authority, if I understand that you have something that you're not as strong in and I'm stronger than you in it, I offer you grace in that area. I can help you in that area. You may have done something wrong, and I'm well within my right to be angry, but do I handle it right now in a moment of anger, in a moment of discipline, or do I pause? Do I gather myself and say, you know what? Um, you're well within your right to respond, but how about if I think about it tonight? How about if I pray about it and then I respond tomorrow, uh, maybe over lunch, and we talk through it? Which one would I get more out of, right? Sometimes we think of things as wins and losses. It wasn't a loss for me to pause. It wasn't a loss for me, you know, to halt the moment. I got the win the next day, or I got what was needed, and it wasn't about wins or losses. And last thing I'll say about this, because this will resonate with, if you remember being in a store, right? If you know your child has some issues. They're just not bad. Back then kids were just bad. No one said, uh, do they have anxiety? Do they have ADD? Do they have, like, what's the issue? What is their dysfunction? What have they been through? If you were in the store and your kid was cutting up, or your kid was having a moment, you discipline for the onlookers. Like, more than likely, you're gonna get a spanking. Where, if you really thought about it, my child has this need, or my child is trying to express this thing, or my child is doing this. It's not about the embarrassment. It's not about whether someone else believes I don't have control over the situation. It's like, what does my child need? And I parent to that, right? So when you see people keep their cool and they don't lose it, and they talk through some things, we never seen that growing up. It was like, boom, you got to spank him because you're not going to show up your parent. But most of the time, the parent was parenting for their onlookers and not parenting for their children. So I started learning to try to parent more for my children. But anyway, this is one of the things that I love talking about, parenting with grace, which usually takes us to the the parental bag. Like, what are you putting in your personal toolkit that helps you be more of a parent, and you literally educating yourself, and you understanding. I have males somewhere between 12 and 13 years old. What is about to happen? They're about to go like a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's like it's about to be some things are going to happen because they're about to experience some chemical changes in their brains and some changes in their body that's going to cause them to act differently. And they're literally not going to understand why they're acting this way. Do you know that? And will you be able to have the grace for this 13 to 17-year-old period, that because you understand what they're going through, you'll be able to parent them differently, right? So this situation is like that, where you're able to parent, a little bit more with grace. Um, One of the topic is called, some of these are so, I haven't seen them in so long. I'm refamiliarizing myself with them as I'm looking. Uh, One is called recalculating. God's word and presence is a navigational system for your life. Even when you are not following his guidance, he is always recalculating to get you back to the best route, or you can call it rerouting. And it's a simple analogy where all of us, and nowadays our car has some sort of navigation system, and if we have it turned on, it's trying to tell us where to go. It's not emotional. It's not. It's just fact based. You're here. You're trying to go here. There's so many. things that I'm calculating to try to help you get where you need to go that you may not even understand, but I know and I understand. And if you trust in the navigation, you'll get where you want to go. But many times in life, we might have the navigation on, but we've gone so many places that we think we know or we know where we're going. So we usually are not listening to the navigation system when it's trying to route us. Hey, I'm just going this way. I'm going here. I prefer this route, or I've been here 20 times. I don't know why you're trying to tell me to go another way. That's me. I get that a lot. Hey, I know where I'm going. Why are you trying to get me to go over here? And I won't listen to the navigation system and I just go my route. And then I run into some traffic or I run into some construction or I run into something and I realize, oh, that's why it was trying to tell me to go a different route. So it's just the whole idea of like God is always this navigational system for your life that's always trying to route you from A to B. And so the question is, are you listening? Are you allowing it? But the good news is, no matter how far you're going off track, no matter how wrong of a direction you're going, it's always rerouting. It just never stops. You know, you can be going completely 180 degrees different than the route you're supposed to go. If at any time you decide, let me look at this, let me tune into this and see what it's saying, it'll say, okay, let's go. You know, go this way. The cool thing about it is it's not like, hey, stupid, you've been going the wrong way for like 45, like it's just once you decide to listen, it just says, okay, hey, let's go this way. It just take you about this long to get there. So it's just an idea of like having that understanding of rerouting or recalculating at any time. Like at any time you determine I'm tired of trying to figure out the route myself. I'm tired of trying to go my own way because I keep getting lost. I keep hitting potholes. I keep doing certain things. Will I be really willing to really just listen to the navigation system? And so that's the general idea. A couple of these other ones I don't have like a lot of mission statement behind it, but I understand it by the topic. One topic is not religion, relationship. So this world today, there's a lot of scrutiny about religion and Christianity and that kind of stuff. But for me, it's relationship. It's relational. And if people really understood that God always just wanted a relationship, He built us for a relationship. The core of being a believer is a relationship with God and not about the rules and the regulations and how you can try to do what and what you've done. It's literally a relationship. And to me, it's like I just picture him as a good father. It's a father and son relationship. And so it's so simplistic for me because I was like, what would the good father do? What would he want? And whether, and I'll be honest, and I didn't have a. I always felt like I didn't have a good father when I had a father when I was younger. Our father we reconciled and everything was great. Love my dad, but I can't. I don't have a good earthly example of a good father. So sometimes that's tough. But I know what a good father should look like. But also me, when I think about myself, if I'm a good father and I'm thinking about my relationship with my children, it helps me just easily guide myself in terms of God's relationship with us. But I just got to remember my human limitations are nothing. God doesn't have those limitations. So you got to multiply by like a million, right? So, it's just relationship. So, not religion, relationship. And that will help the common man that's looking for something and that's maybe putting a toe in the water or interested in a relationship with God, but they're hearing about what people say about the pastor or what people say about the church or man, I'm bad. I don't have my life together. Uh they think about the rules and they can't follow the rules or whatever, and that's not the starting point. The starting point is just a relationship. He's a good father. He wants a relationship with you, and you just have to keep it real simple. Um, One of them is born with baggage, and that's just simply the impact of generational curses. And that's a topic. we hear sometimes, but I don't think we talk in very much depth. And the same way people look like their mom or look like their dad or they're the same height or whatever, like there's literal spiritual things that are part of your lineage and your being, just like physical characteristics are. Just like your physical characteristics are a part of your family line, your spiritual DNA is as well. And the word of God says, generational curses will try to visit, down 4 generation lines. And so, what is that? For different families, it's different things. For our family, it's anger, mental health, um, and every person will have to come to that at some point when it attempts to visit you. You got to be aware of it, and you have to understand how to try to combat it or how to fight it. And it's all spiritual. Most of it is not physical. And it's like, how do I, what tools and what things do I do to make sure that the generational curses from my family don't control my life, and they don't continue to try to go down my family line. Like, where do I try to stop it and break it, and it may visit, but it can't stay. Right. So, born with baggage, born with the things that they're not your fault. You didn't ask for them, but it's part of your lineage, and so you got to figure out how to address it, and how to deal with it, and it's an ongoing thing. So, go where the fish are. You have the rod and the reels, the equipment, the gear, the bumper stickers. You talk fishing all the time, but where are you fishing? Who's benefiting from your life? Are you fishing for solutions, or are you fishing for people? So that goes just back to God's basic premise when he was talking to fishermen. Jesus was always very simple and practical. Even though he was extremely intelligent, he talked to farmers about farming, about agriculture. He talked to fishermen about fishing. Talk to people right where they were. And so we are called to be fishers of men. And so a lot of times, if we're going to fish, we got to go to the place where the fish are. And so sometimes people have called out even Jesus, why are you sitting with those people? Why are you talking with these people? Like, it's kind of like you're in the emergency room and there's a bunch of sick people in here, and you're surprised sick people are at the emergency room. The doctor is coming to see the sick people. Like that's who need them. So sometimes we're believers, we're called to be fishers of men, but we're believers and we're never where the fish are. We're in the safe places. We're in our own comfort. We made it through. We made the 180. We repented. We're set, but we're not fishing for anyone. We're nowhere where the fish are. So, I think that's a call to action to say, okay, you're saved, but the commission was to go make fishers of men. The commission was to go spread the gospel so that people may be saved. And so I think we are challenged with if we are fishing and where we are fishing. Some people are fishing right from the church porch, right? But you'll maybe get some people beckoning from the door of the church. But that's why I like a lot of Christian hip hop and some of the other things where it's out in the harvest, it's out in the streets, it's out in the prisons, it's out in the areas where the fish are, and it's taking a risk to go communicate with the lost that there's a savior. So go where the fish are. Um, we talked about can you fight, but for the sake of being on video, I'll go through that one very briefly. In the midst of a battle, after you have taken some bullets and you've had some bad falls, someone looks to you and asks, "Can you fight?" And the whole idea of it is from a man's sake, it's very easy for us to relate to over my dead body. It's very easy to relate to if someone is trying to come into my home, or if someone is trying to hurt any of my family, like I'm gonna jump to action. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna do something. I'm physically prepared. Even me, I'm 51 years old. Just the thought of me having to be somewhat physically fit to take care of myself or to protect, protect my family, I go to the gym. I do some of the things that I need to do to make sure that I'm successful, that I can defend myself, I can defend my family. So that whole idea of can you fight from a spiritual standpoint, that's the big question. Like you're physically prepared, you're physically fit, but are you spiritually prepared? Are you spiritually fit when a spiritual attack comes to your door, right? I know what I would do if someone kicked my door from my front door in, or I know what I would do if I was driving on the road and someone tried to get into the door and take my wife. But what happens when spiritual attack hits your wife? Like how strong are you in that regard? Can you really fight? Can you fight in that respect? Right. So just challenging people more to understand what it takes to be spiritually prepared in the event of a fight, because we are going to have a fight, and the Bible tells us the battles are not flesh and blood, they're spiritual. So if we understand that, um, are we pushing against some word? Are we lifting some, some scriptures, some church services or whatever the case may be? Like can you fight? We should really be charging ourselves hard to ask, are we prepared? Do we have that same zest and fire and tenaciousness that how dare someone attempt to come against me physically? Do we have that same audacity that something would come against you spiritually, and are you literally ready and prepared to stand up to it? Um, you know, full, full go. So, man, that was a lot. Couple one, I'll couple over very quickly. Damaged goods, broken, cracked, scratched, impaired, etc. A person who's considered to be not as desirable or valuable because of something that has happened in their past, damage from others, self-inflicted, or generational curses. When you're damaged goods, um, how do you see yourself? How do you cope, and how do you move forward from a damaged state? Um, and it's funny that we're talking because I remember I told you once before, we all damaged goods. Like I was talking about our siblings, you know, me, you, our brother, the four of us as siblings, like because of the environment we grew up in, either directly or indirectly, we all got a little damage in that experience. So it's not something that's what was the word? Um embarrassing, or it's not something that should be confusing. It should be something that's just understood and accepted and a point of reference for moving forward. So, we're all a little damaged because of what we've been through and how we came up. Um, I'll say two more very quickly. Unpack. Just as we should unpack our bags after we return home from a trip, we should take time to reflect on our past, hurt, and trauma that has impacted our lives and usher in healing and community. So, how many people really just take a moment and unpack their life and realize, well, what have I gone through? What has hurt me? What has helped me? Um, what am I still holding on to that I need to let go? Whereas unforgiveness, all those things, like literally, the trip is you've already taken it, and you can't go on another trip with all the same old stuff in the bag, right? If you're preparing to go somewhere new, you're preparing to do something great in the future. It's time to unpack that bag, right? So let's unpack it and determine what's in there, and take it out and move forward. So many people have legitimate reasons of why they could be failures, of why they could be incarcerated, or why they can't move forward, or why they can't be whatever they are. Once you determine, and once you're old enough, you're a man or you're a woman, you understand that I went through it. At some point, you have to say, you know what? No matter what that was, it's done. I have to determine now to unpack and move forward, right? So, how do you do that? A lot of people need to really think about that and consider that. Some people are going through hurt of being physically or sexually abused. Some people are going through hurt of being abandoned by a parent, whether it was purposeful or whether it's just by death. Some people are going through something and they have some bad behaviors that were born out of that, that they've been standing behind that. This is why I do that because I haven't had this or I didn't have this or this happened to me. And so I get it. And now it's time for you to move on, right? Because you can't keep letting that anchor you down. You have to be able to move forward. So unpack. The last one is based off of John 8:7, and it's just no stones. A safe place among men where there is open discussion and testimony with no judgment, empty hands with no stones to throw, just open hearts and understanding for one another. And it's also kind of the idea behind men's group in general, like a men's group, where there was a situation where Jesus walked up and people had a lady dead to rights, like caught her in the act of adultery. And this is just, paraphrasing from the Bible. But they're like, Jesus, she did wrong. We know the law. These were Pharisees, so these were the lawful people, did wrong, caught in the act. They got stones ready to stone her. They're like, Jesus, what do you say? Because they're trying to catch Jesus in the act, in the middle of like trying to get him caught up, for lack of a better phrase. And he's wrote down, stooped down and wrote something in the sand. He stood up and he just simply said, "He who's out without sin cast the first stone." So these being lawful people and legal people, they have to go ahead and evaluate: am I outside of the law but nobody knows about it? Have I done something? Can I lawfully cast this stone? And actually, no one could. So when Jesus kneeled down again, rolled in the sand, and got up, he looked up. There was no one there to throw a stone, right? And so talked to her, got her straight, and moved on. So again, one of those times where somebody smart was trying to get Jesus caught up, and he put it back on them in a way that he got the lesson was taught. But if you and I are talking man to man, if I'm transparent and you're transparent, we're in a safe place. There's no stone that I can throw at you because I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I got my flaws. I need help just like you do. Uh, and so I can come to you literally with an open hand and show you I have no stone to throw at you. And the same thing. So, men finding safe places where you can open up, talk about everything that men go through, everything that something that may be hurting you, all the lies that people have told you that you have to be this or that you're realizing I can't carry this weight. You have to go to a place where literally there's open hands and no stones, and you can find, peaceful, restful, safe situation to communicate through. So, yeah, that's it.
There's one thing I know it's a book title, but it brought a lot of clarity to me why sometimes you don't get what you want in life. It might not be a part of God's plan. So you told a story of, imagine you're taking your child to Walmart
Right.
and you may only give them. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this was really a thought that came to me, and I've shared it a lot, but just a thought that came to mind. And again, relationship with God. It's just about relationship, right? So remember, I gave the example earlier. God is just a good father and a good father to his children, right? So imagine you are with your father, right, and you guys are going into Walmart and let's say you're 5 years old, right? And so you ask your father, Daddy, like, give me some money. I want some money in the store, right? And so you being a good father, but you also having the wisdom that's needed to parent, you might assess based on your son's age and what you know about him, you might give him $5. You're like, I'm gonna give him $5. As we're walking the store, you feel like he got some money or whatever, right? So you give him $5 because you're comfortable with him holding that, and there's a high probability he may lose it. But if he loses it, it's only $5, right? Because you only gave him what you think he can handle. So you all go through Walmart and you're just walking and looking, and he's excited about the $5 that is in his hand, but he really doesn't have the full value of money and what it takes to get things. So he sees this brand new bike that he wants. And so he's like, Dad, I want to get that bike and I have this $5. I got my money. I'm gonna get this bike. So you're thinking in your mind, you know what? He's a good kid. He's been good. Whatever. I'm gonna get him this bike. So you get the bike. You guys go to the counter. You got this bike that's probably worth $200. He has a $5 in his hand, and you go up and he thinks that he can buy this bike with $5, right? And so he puts the $5 up there. They're buying it, and you go out and he's happy. The thing that reason why this thought just resonated with me is just goes like how God handles us a lot of times and what we need to understand. Um, the fact that the kid was able to get the bike wasn't because he had $5. It was because he was with the father. So even though he only had $5 in his hand, that's what the father trusted him with at that moment because he is with the father in close proximity with his dad and there with his dad. He has $5 in his hand, but he really has everything the father has. He has everything that a good father has. Whatever is in his pockets, whatever is in his bank account, whatever, he has it. Now, the father only trusted $5 in his hand, but that wasn't all he had. So let's say that same scenario, it was a 12-year-old and he asked his father for something. Maybe the father would give him $100 just because of the difference in age and his assessment of what that son could handle in his hand, right? What he could trust him with in his hand. Maybe let's say if that kid was $12, if that same 12-year-old had already been working and cutting the yard and doing all kind of things where he showed a high level of functionality with things and a work ethic and all that, that dad might got that the dad might put $200 in his hand. He may put $5 in his hand, but it's based on the relationship and trust that he has with them coming in the door. But the great thing about it is if he's a good father and you are a son to the good father and you are with the father, you're in close proximity to him. If you are with him, even though you have whatever you have in your hand, you still really have everything the father has. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And so um we have a father that has everything that the word said he owns a cattle of 1,000 hills. Like imagine having a father with infinite resources, but you're not in close proximity to him. So if he can only trust you with $5 and you're not with him, maybe you're frustrated because you only have the $5. If you change your proximity, if you get closer to the good father, and if you understand, it doesn't matter what I really have. It matters whose I am and who I'm with. And if I'm in right standing with the Father, that I literally can have everything that He has. Right. So some of us get frustrated because we realize all I got is $5. I know the value of money now. I got $5. I got it in my hand. And you're frustrated with the fact that he only put $5 in your hand coming in the door because you understand that it was just $5 and you don't remember. But if I'm in good relationship with the father, I can really have anything I want in the store because my father can buy me anything. He can get anything for me. So I think that's what you were speaking of. Yeah.